Let's get a little bit more spiritual, shall we? Before we move on to some more harder news. Let's bring in Helen Rose. Hello, Helen. How are you?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. I met you the other week, didn't I, at the Red Line where I was speaking, had a lovely conversation with you. And you said some really curious things to me. And one of them was about how you had been channeled through automatic writing to write a book. And you worked in cooperation, I believe, with what you call the Divine Council. Is that correct? Talk
Yeah.
to us about the Divine Council.
So, as far as I understand, they are a group consciousness of how they describe it. They call themselves, had earth lives and they became enlightened during their earth life. And now they are responsible, it sounds so lofty, for overseeing part of the divine plan and helping a certain number of what they call light warriors to try and become basically a living example of having inner peace within themselves, to then ripple that consciousness out to the consciousness of the planet, to try and override the mass consciousness, or the mind control, or the mind programming. That yeah, sorry, I'm probably not
No,
saying.
no, no, we're going to go into it deeper. So this is the channeled automatic writing that you were inspired. And
Yeah.
I know that feeling where you feel that it's not actually you writing. You feel that something much bigger and beyond you has taken over. And it's the coming times, a pathway to inner peace. Well, obviously, we've got so much bloodshed and war around us and perpetual wars that we need some peace. We absolutely do. But talk to us a little bit about your experience, about when you first started writing this.
So it happened. It was the last thing I was expecting. I was actually seeing a counsellor. I was going through a really quite a dark place in my own life, massive amounts of inner chaos, and I was seeing a therapist, and he told me to do it's like a therapeutic tool where it's called inner child healing. And part of this exercise, you write with one hand and you ask your inner child, like your deepest shadows, your deepest issues, and then you respond with the other hand. And so I was doing the exercises I've been told to do. And what I started writing was it was certainly not from like my hurt inner child that I was trying to heal. It was really quite profound wisdom. And it was telling me, it basically, what I wrote told me where my issues came from, from when I was much younger. And that's how it started. It literally just started like that. I started doing it every day and my hands would tingle and I'd write, and I wouldn't know what, it sounds really out there, but I wouldn't know what I was writing. It was like I went into a different space, a different consciousness, and then I'd read it back as if I hadn't written it. I know it sounds really out there.
Well, no, it'll only sound out there to somebody who hasn't had such a profound
Mm.
experience. And the thing is that I think some people, they'll kind of poo-poo what you're saying, one, through embarrassment, right? Because it touches something as well. I mean, I've come from a spiritual background. These things do not make me embarrassed. I don't think they're woo-woo. And I know that I have both my feet planted firmly on the earth as well. And I think that it's really important to pull in all elements of ourselves. We're so much more than just these worldly, earthly beings, and we should be more in touch with it. Do you feel that you were changing as you were doing those automatic writings?
Yes, I absolutely do. And I think I think I was changing. I think they taught through the automatic writing. I was completely asleep at this point. Like I was not awake to anything. And the first stage of what they would if you like, they were teaching me, was to see the world for what it was. And so, I'd come from I'd done a degree in journalism and politics. I was, I wanted to get into journalism, and they started to take me down the rabbit hole, and so I was changing at a fast pace, reading everything I could read, seeing the world. Suddenly, the blinkers came off, and I went, that was my first route, kind of. And then all of a sudden I started to be taught about, you need to meditate, you need to look at yourself, you need to, so it was it's been a really interesting journey.
What have been people's responses to you when you're talking about these things?
It's interesting because I've been quite shy about talking about it. So I'm only really starting to talk about it now. I did the book, I didn't really say anything to anybody. I just carried on. I've got a circle of friends that I confide in and talk to about. So I'm really just, I'm kind of like just stepping out with it now and owning it now. I've been quite shy about it.
Well, good for you. Not being, I mean, either way, let people be however they want to be, and kind of like reveal themselves as and when they're ready. But I think one of the interesting things that you said to me then, and also you continued that in an email, was about that there were, I think, as you described them, some fairly controversial views in terms of like the resistance truther movement. Can you expand on that a little bit for me?
Yeah, so they specifically say in the book that there's a certain proportion of the truther movement that they're hoping for us to start to see things from a higher perspective, so that we can look at things slightly differently, with perhaps somehow less anger coming from within ourselves, so that we can become more of a solution rather than kind of attacking the issue from the same consciousness, the same standpoint. Because what they're kind of trying to get across is that real true change comes from a change. It's really deep, but it actually comes from a change in consciousness. The systems have to be changed, but they can't be changed at the same level of consciousness that they're at. It's almost like we have to
Exactly.
go.
You cannot solve a problem with the same issues that created the problem in the first place. That's really what you're saying right there, isn't it? And the problem is what the so-called truther movement is literally based on a lot of fear and outrage, isn't it? How can we reach a place of enlightenment from all of this fear porn that is being shoved at us 24/7? Any thoughts about that? We can't, can we?
No, we can't, because actually it just keeps us stuck, and it actually doesn't keep us powerful. We're so much more powerful when we can learn how to almost overcome the fear and feel powerful in ourselves, and trust that we are part of a bigger plan. Almost, we didn't wake up just to stay stuck in this system. We're supposed to be able to overcome all the mind control, and we all have aspects of it. We've all got patterns, programming that we really need to take self-responsibility for, to overcome, if we really want to be a change, a real, a proper change.
How do we find peace within the chaos, which is one of the chapters of your book?
Oh gosh, that's a big question. Well, it starts with us really making inner peace our priority, and how it's explained is we don't really know how to do that, because our mind is so controlled to believe that we're nothing bigger than our small selves.
Right, right.
And so really the only way that we can do this is to start to make time each day. It's not really that logical, and it's not really that practical, in the sense of trying to take time to be silent, trying to actually take time out of all the distractions, sitting with ourselves, being self-responsible for the fear that is within us, and trying to sit with it. Because, it's this old age cliche, but what we feel, we heal. And the more we, and it says, they do say that the more we heal, it sounds a bit naff, but the more light we let in. And so we become more strengthened by our true self, whatever we want to call it, our higher self, our soul, that presence that's within us. That is powerful. It's powerful.
It really is. And one of the things that you also talk about is the importance of mastering one's mind so that it doesn't actually master you, right? But that's so hard. That's like a small thing to a huge answer. Where do you even begin with something like that?
Oh, it's such a good question. So such a good question. Where do you begin with mastering your mind? You know, I think the first stage is to realize how much your mind has been controlled. I think that's possibly, I can only say from how they've trained me, I had to really face how much I have been controlled to then start to try and allow, if you like, my higher self, my soul, to have more presence in my life. So I noticed things like my mind would automatically go to, say, fear and worry. I'd then go into meditation and ask vulnerably, humbly, how do I stop this? How do I become sovereign in myself? And then the answer I got is, it's not through your mind. You have to trust and allow that higher part of you to work through you. It's illogical, but at the same time, we have to, in a sense, it comes down to an element of trust and faith that we are being guided by something bigger than us. And I know that sounds really
But no, but
woo-woo.
that's the reality, though. We've been taught literally to distance ourselves from the source of who we are, and whatever you choose to believe that is, whether you choose to believe it is like through a form of religion, like a God or a Jesus kind of character, or a source or the universe, whatever you believe, or you may not believe, but I absolutely do believe, and it's beyond belief. And the reason it's beyond belief is because I see examples of it every day in my life. And that's the thing, is I think once you're in tune, it's amazing what you can do. One, with quieting the mind and becoming a master or a mistress of it, however you want to look at it. But also, I think another key thing that you also touch on, and I think this is really key, is that we have a world where people have such victimhood mentalities on a constant basis. And I want to quote Chris Rock, oddly. He said that the world is, I'm going to paraphrase him. He said, the world is, there are genuine victims in this world, but the emergency room is full of people with paper cuts. And I think that's a brilliant quote, because what it tells us is people create victimhood out of stuff that plainly is not victimhood. And I think the moment that you do that, you lose, right? You lose any ability to be able to reach a higher self.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you deal with that? Say somebody's been through a terrible experience on earth. Somebody else has badly, harmed them. However, they've harmed them, maybe harmed their loved ones, and they are a genuine victim. They really are. But how do you begin to overcome something so momentous in your life?
Oh gosh, that is such a good
I mean, they're
question.
massive questions I'm asking you, and I get it that you're almost like channeling as I'm talking to you. I get it. I really do get it. I wonder if there are any simple answers at all.
I know. And I must say this, I'm trying to understand it myself. It's like I'm trying to catch up with particularly that chapter which talks about, you are not a victim. It's, when you start to really, when big stuff and bad stuff has happened, that that pain, it's hard. But I think that what I'm starting to understand is that we have to understand that there are so many layers and levels to everything that we experience, and that I know myself that my awakening came through deep pain. It didn't come from when I was feeling good and when I was feeling happy.
Right. And that is, I think, quite key. We often talk on here. I have a section at the end of each show where I talk about either spirituality or psychology or whatever. And I often talk about actually the value of adversity and how it has shaped me, but shaped me in a way that I'm happy with, even though it was hard earned, and I think that's it, isn't it? Like heartbreaking stuff, abuse and abandonment and, being orphaned and all these things. But it's made me who I am, and I'm happy to be who I am. And I wonder whether that is part of the soul's journey.
Yeah, I absolutely believe that. I absolutely believe that. I really, really do. And I think that maybe quite a lot of us, in a sense, did like put our hands up. It sounds like game really out there, and said, "Look, we live on a planet of abuse. We do. The more you dive deep into it, abuse is at the bottom. Among so many other things." And I feel like there was a lot and loss and grief and pain, and perhaps we signed up and we said we're gonna We are going to go through this experience, and somehow we're going to transmute it. We're going to bring light. We're going to bring consciousness. We're going to bring more awareness. And somehow that starts to shape and change society at a different level.
Gaslighting Gilligan is one of our regular guests. Great quote. We're emotionally led and allow emotions to dictate our reality, in quotes, and behavioral responses. That's why propaganda specifically sets out to target emotions. So the people who are working against us know exactly how we work, and they know how to use it against us. And so again, that's something else we have to overcome, isn't it? We have to, so like going back to that whole kind of alternative movement, truth and movement and everything, from your automatic writing and the channeling, any advice on how we can better it? Because a lot of people in that movement genuinely want the truth, but they're also being misled by other people within it, because obviously there's always people, there's always usurpers and people who have come in to infiltrate and change the course of a movement and everything. But really, any advice? Because it's all about the soul's journey, a lot of this that you're dealing with.
Yeah, I think that obviously within the truth movement, everybody is waking up, everybody's really passionate, everybody wants to see change. But the more we can get in touch with our own intuition, and our own inner guidance about how we individually can make a difference, the more powerful the movement will become, because then we'll be drawn. It's like,
right,
we're being, really, I guess what I'm trying to talk about is the movement inwards, not outwards, to then affect greater change.
yeah,
Because if we just keep getting swept by the anger, like going back to feeling like victims of the system, we're not actually really helping. I know it feels powerful to feel the anger and to know that we're up to date on all the latest, but actually we're not really being effective agents of change.
no, we're not at all. It's a lot of noise, a lot of rage, a lot of outrage, often based on absolute mis and disinformation. And just because people want to believe, like they want their thoughts validated. So as soon as they receive any information that even halfway attempts to validate their thoughts, they run with it. And of course, what do you think about things like social media? I mean, there's like good and bad, obviously, attached to social media, but social media is one, brought people together, but now being used against us in many respects. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, I do. Yes.
How do we deal with that though? Because it's such a useful tool for us coming together. So we have to develop, there you go, use discernment at all times. Discernment is so vital, right?
Absolutely. And you know what? I actually do believe we can train ourselves to actually feel into what, if we like, is truth and what is actually manipulating us. I believe that we can start to feel it. We have that sense within ourselves.
Maybe we can't handle the truth, says Frank. Do you think we're running away from ourselves? Do you think that because we're only human, aren't we? We're mere mortals and we're full of errors and mistakes and shortcomings and all of these things, right? So maybe the fact is that even though we have those guiding lights available to us, if we want to, maybe we're also scared of facing the truth. Is that an element of it as well?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think one of the spiritual practices of what they call shadow work is one of the scariest things you can actually do.
Yes.
Like, oh my God. I mean, yeah. And so I guess if we can't face ourselves, right, ultimately, we can't face anything else, can we? And so I suppose if we can be brave and we can be courageous and we can face ourselves in all our aspects, and we can embrace our darkness and all the stuff that we don't want anyone, we just want to hide from. I think if we can dare to do that, then we can start to face properly what's going on. And perhaps in our own small ways, we can start to make some kind of a difference.
What do you think about meditation? Is it key, as Mike suggests? You can all experience these abilities. Some people come on here and say, don't promote meditation. It's the devil's work. It allows darkness to creep in the empty space. I don't agree with that at all. I think good meditation is one of the best things that a human can do. But what's your thoughts on meditation?
I'm an absolute advocate for meditation. How I see meditation is that the more time we allow ourselves to be in some kind of silence, we're strengthening our connection with our soul, with our higher self, with our intuition. That's how I perceive it. I don't perceive it in any way as darkness. I don't see it like that. I see it that we're giving space for that side of ourselves. There's silence speaks to us. I've learned this myself. It sounds really out there, but
Fact. It does. Speaks very loudly, actually.
Yeah.
Silence speaks very, very loudly, whether that is your own internal silence or if you choose not to dignify somebody's appalling behavior, that silence again also speaks volumes. Just talk to us about, you say that the coming crisis is part of the divine plan, and you say nothing is what it seems on the world stage. Expand on that.
Okay. So they say that the era that we're stepping into is inevitable, and that everything that has been hidden has to be come up for the world to face. And just like we had to face our own awakenings, the humanity at large has to. Sorry, I've forgotten what you asked as the second part, Sonia.
Second part is about how what we're witnessing. You say nothing is what it seems on the world stage. So everything that we're observing, whether that is the overthrow of Assad or the opening of the Notre Dame or the globalists coming together, nothing is what it seems.
Well, I think what they're trying to say is that we can only grasp at what we think is the corruption, or what we think is how we're being played, or the collaborations or the non-collaborations, and really we don't have we can't really understand the depths of kind of the manipulation that's at play. So it's quite hard for us to really understand what's going on. But at the same time, they're saying it's all part of a plan to start to expose it.
Well, now that is interesting. Sasha says it's a spiritual war. I do tend to agree with that. It feels very much that what we're experiencing and have experienced for a very long time, and certainly for those of us who are more aware, is there is absolutely a good versus evil at play here. And that feels accurate to you. There's not some other divine force in play, but it is a kind of simple case of good versus evil.
It does, but I'm going to take it back a little bit. So they say that actually the fundamental issue is that humanity as a whole allows itself to be so conditioned by the mind and the emotions of, whether we want to call it greed, hate, anger, jealousy. Man's mind is so dark, really, that it plays out on the world stage.
Got you.
So that if we took responsibility to become more peaceful within ourselves, what would actually happen as a response to that is the world would have to change. So in a sense, there's a lot of players on the world stage who are actually playing out at a microcosm what's going on the microcosm.
Yeah, understood. But the thing is it's interesting watching you, because you literally, it's almost like I ask you a question and you're waiting for an answer for someone else. It's someone else. Like, is someone else inside of you supplying answers to you? Is that what's going on?
No, I think because I've channeled this, and because I guess I don't feel an authority, because I'd be pretending I'm trying to be peaceful. I'm trying to understand what I've written.
Right.
I kind of feel that I'm not doing it service if the Helen human that's just trying to understand what she's brought through automatic writing answers you. I feel like I'm almost doing a disservice to what I've brought through. Does that make any sense?
It makes absolute sense. I get you. I really get you. Before you leave us today, tell us what you want people to know about you, your book, and the coming times.
I suppose I personally, Helen, just feel like I have a mission to try and encourage people to really look within themselves. It's really easy for us to look outside and be so angry and blame, and feel like victims. But I really am going to be on a mission to try and encourage people to look within and be brave and be courageous, to try and believe that we are more than we think we are, and that we are bigger than our little selves, and that we can become effective agents of change the more peaceful we are, and bringing this spiritual element into the conversation maybe more.
Yeah, I don't think our world, just on a practical level, where we're geared around finances, monetary issues, and everyday practicality is going to solve the problems. I really don't. And I really appreciate you joining us today and kind of working your way through it, literally visually in front of our eyes. It's quite fascinating. Really, it is. But lovely to have you with us, everybody. This is Helen J. Rose, and she is the author of The Coming Times, A Pathway to Inner Peace. Lovely to have you with us, Helen Jane. Take good care of yourself,
Thank you.
sweetheart.
Thank
Lovely
you.
to have her. She's lovely. Yes, she is.